July 6, 1988, far out in the North Sea, nearly 190 kilometers northeast of Aberdeen, Scotland. One of the world's busiest offshore oil and gas platforms begins another routine evening. Its name, Piper Alpha. For years, the platform had been one of the most productive in the North Sea. Hundreds of men lived and worked on board. Engineers, operators, maintenance technicians, electricians, instrument specialists, caterers, helicopter crews, for those on board. Life followed a familiar rhythm. Production continued around the clock. Equipment was inspected, maintenance was carefully scheduled. Control room operators monitored hundreds of instruments. Radio conversations flowed continuously between departments. From the outside, Piper Alpha looked like a symbol of engineering success. But beneath the surface, the platform had changed dramatically since it first began operating. Originally designed to produce oil, it had gradually been modified to process increasing amounts of natural gas. That transformation brought new opportunities, but also new risks. High-pressure gas now moved through equipment that demanded absolute control. Every valve, every permit, every maintenance activity, every shift handover had become part of a much larger safety system. On this particular day, maintenance crews had been carrying out planned work on production equipment. Like thousands of maintenance jobs completed safely throughout the offshore industry, it appeared routine. Work permits were issued. Equipment was isolated. Teams completed their assigned tasks. As evening approached, the day shift handed over responsibility to the night shift. Nothing suggested that history was about to be made. No one on board knew that a series of seemingly ordinary decisions would soon combine into one of the most significant offshore disasters the world had ever witnessed. But this documentary is not simply about what happened that night. It is about what investigators discovered afterward. Because understanding Piper Alpha means understanding something much deeper than a single accident. It means understanding how complex systems fail, how small communication breakdowns can combine into major hazards, and how an entire industry transformed the way it thinks about safety. Today, every offshore worker, every permit to work, every emergency drill, and every critical safeguard still carries the lessons of Piper Alpha. To understand why, we must return to that evening and follow the investigation that changed offshore safety forever.
The Piper Alpha disaster didn't just change offshore oil production, it changed the way the entire world thinks about industrial safety. But investigators soon discovered this tragedy wasn't caused by a single mistake. It was the result of multiple failures unfolding one after another. I'm Hillary. Let's continue.
When the immediate emergency was over, the questions had only just begun. How could one of the world's leading offshore platforms experience such a devastating chain of events? To answer that question, a full public inquiry was established under Lord William Cullen. Its mission was not simply to determine what happened. It was to understand why it happened, and how similar tragedies could be prevented in the future. Investigators gathered maintenance records, permit-to-work documents, control room logs, witness statements from survivors, engineering drawings, operating procedures. Every piece of evidence was carefully examined. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. Earlier that day, maintenance had been carried out on one of the platform's condensate pumps. As part of that work, its associated pressure safety valve had been removed from service to safely isolate the open connection. A temporary blind flange had been fitted. The work had not yet been fully completed. The equipment was not ready to return to normal operation. The investigation found that documentation relating to this maintenance, including the permit to work, did not provide the night shift with a complete understanding of the equipment's status. Later that evening, when another condensate pump became unavailable, operators looked to the standby pump to maintain production. Based on the information available to them, they believed it could be started safely. What they could not see was that the associated pressure safety valve had not yet been restored to service. When the standby pump was restarted, Hydrocarbon condensate escaped through the temporary connection. Within moments, a flammable gas cloud formed. When it found an ignition source, the first explosion occurred, but the Cullen Inquiry concluded that this was not simply the result of one decision or one person's mistake. Instead, it revealed a chain of contributing factors. Communication between shifts had broken down. The permit-to-work process had weaknesses. Critical maintenance information was not fully transferred. Operational decisions were made using incomplete information. The disaster was not caused by a single failure. It was the result of multiple safety barriers, failing one after another. For investigators, this became one of the most important lessons. Major industrial accidents rarely begin with one catastrophic event. They often begin with several small problems, each appearing manageable on its own, until they align at exactly the wrong moment. Understanding that chain of events would forever change the offshore industry's approach to safety. As investigators continued examining the evidence, one important question remained. Why had the situation escalated so rapidly? The answer was far more complex than the initial gas release. The Cullen Inquiry found that several critical safety systems had been overwhelmed as the emergency unfolded. Years before the incident, Piper Alpha had been designed primarily as an oil production platform. But over time, it had been modified to process large volumes of natural gas. Those changes increased both production and the potential consequences of a major hydrocarbon release. Investigators also examined how the platform was connected to other offshore installations. High-pressure gas pipelines continued supplying gas toward Piper Alpha during the emergency. Those pipelines contained enormous amounts of energy. As the fires intensified, they were exposed to extreme heat. The resulting failures greatly increased the severity of the incident. The inquiry also reviewed emergency preparedness. It examined emergency procedures, communication, evacuation arrangements, and the challenges faced by rescue teams operating in darkness, smoke, intense heat, and difficult offshore conditions. The investigation recognized the extraordinary courage shown by many offshore workers and rescue personnel. At the same time, it concluded that improvements were needed in emergency planning, evacuation systems, and the overall management of major hazards. Perhaps the most important conclusion was that the disaster could not be explained by a single mistake. It was a chain of failures: design considerations, maintenance management, permit-to-work controls, shift handovers, communication, emergency preparedness. Each represented a layer of protection. And when several of those layers failed together, the consequences became catastrophic. For the offshore industry, this changed everything. The investigation demonstrated that preventing major accidents requires more than reliable equipment. It requires strong safety leadership, clear procedures, effective communication, continuous training, and multiple independent safeguards working together. The lessons of Piper Alpha would soon reshape offshore safety across the world, changing how platforms are designed, how work is planned, and how every major hazard is managed. The Piper Alpha disaster changed the offshore industry forever. But its greatest legacy was not the platform that was lost. It was the determination that such a tragedy should never happen again. After months of investigation, Lord Cullen delivered one of the most comprehensive offshore safety inquiries ever conducted. The report did more than explain what happened. It challenged the entire offshore industry to rethink how major hazards were managed. In total, the inquiry produced 106 recommendations. Many of those recommendations became the foundation of modern offshore safety. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of the safety case regime. Instead of simply following regulations, operators were now required to demonstrate that they had identified every major hazard, assessed every significant risk, and implemented effective controls to manage them. The philosophy of offshore safety had fundamentally changed. The question was no longer, Are we following the rules? It became, have we done everything reasonably possible to prevent a major accident? Permit-to-work systems were strengthened. Shift handovers became more structured and detailed. Maintenance planning was improved. Emergency shutdown systems were reviewed and enhanced. Fire and blast protection received greater attention during platform design. Emergency response procedures were strengthened. Escape routes and evacuation systems were re-evaluated. Safety training became more comprehensive. Regular emergency drills became an essential part of offshore life. The disaster also transformed the way safety was regulated. Responsibility for offshore safety oversight in the United Kingdom was transferred to the Health and Safety Executive. Independent regulation brought a renewed focus on preventing major accidents before they could occur. Today, every toolbox talk, every permit to work, every gas detector, every emergency shutdown valve, every safety inspection, every evacuation drill, and every critical safeguard carries lessons learned from Piper Alpha. Most offshore workers will never visit the North Sea platform where those lessons began, but they benefit from them every single day. The safest offshore operations are not those that simply respond well to emergencies. They are the ones that work relentlessly to prevent emergencies from happening at all. Piper Alpha remains one of the defining moments in the history of the offshore oil and gas industry. Not because of how it began, but because of what the world learned from it. Today, every offshore worker who returns home safely, every successful shift, every hazard identified before it becomes an incident, and every life protected by modern safety systems, stands as part of that legacy. Because the greatest tribute to those who were affected is not simply remembering what happened, it is continuing to learn, continuing to improve, and ensuring that the lessons of Piper Alpha are never forgotten. That is how offshore safety was changed forever.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more offshore documentaries. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.